All right. I'm seriously going to get serious about my training. I've got a serious gun. And because if I'm ever called upon to save the life of myself or somebody else, I'm going to need to know what happens when I shoot without hearing protection. How many of you have heard that? Hey, if you're serious about your training, you're going to train without eye and ear protection. Some of you are like, what the heck is he talking about? Well, I hear this enough, including this day, that I thought I'm going to hard stop on my plans and I'm going to make this video right now. So I got a call today talking to a student and they said, hey man, I just did some serious training with some serious dudes and we took our eye and ear protection off and we shot. So that now if I ever have to defend myself, I have heard what a gunshot sounds like without hearing protection. Because in reality, I'm not going to have hearing protection. That is the dumbest possible thing I have ever heard. Maybe not the dumbest, but definitely in the top 47 stupidest things I've ever heard. I have never felt somebody kick me full force 372 times in my ball sack, and I don't need for them to do that to find out that it sucks. I have never had somebody spray dragon piss in my eyes, which I would guess dragon piss would be something like hydrochloric acid. And I don't want dragon piss in my eyes. Guys, dragon piss isn't even real. I don't need to do certain things to know I don't want to do them. So the argument is, yeah, but in reality, you might be so scared by the noise. Well, let's look at some data. I know dozens and dozens of men personally outside of military service that have been involved in violence with firearms, from law enforcement to non-law enforcement. Not one of them said that the gunfire was a problem. That's telling. Let's go back to how our ears work. I'm not an audiologist, I'm not an ear, nose, and throat specialist or a doctor, but I guarantee what I'm about to tell you is 100% true. When you cause damage to your inner ear, it is permanent. Permanent. When you go to a concert or you're running a drill, hammer drill, or you're running an ear ratchet, or you're running a weed whacker or something like that, and you go home when you're done, or you go in the house to quiet and you hear a definable ringing in your ears, that is an indication that you have caused damage to your inner ear. Now, the ringing may stop in a day or two, but the 0.5%, the 1/4%, the percent, the 2%, the 5% of your hearing that was diminished by that exposure, depending on the decibel and the frequency and the exposure time frame, is forever. Hearing aids don't fix hearing loss. Hearing aids boost the volume into your ear. All they're doing is amplifying sound, right? Just like your earbuds when you're listening, or headphones with music, you're just taking outside sounds and amplifying it to help you hear because you killed part of your inner ear. That's irreparable. And you may say, well, I don't give a shit. Well, take it from this guy. I got some gray hair here. And I was exposed to things like gunshots, tools of all kinds, from chainsaws and partner saws to brick saws and skid loaders and things of that nature, engines. Worked in a small engine shop fixing snowmobiles and jet skis and things like that. So you'd have those kinds of noises to nail guns. And then, of course, gunshots. Over and over and over time causes great damage. You might think just a few exposures, not a big deal. It's absolutely not true. There are people that have been involved in a few things, even like a car crash where there was a loud noise, and that damage is permanent. Think about this. In nature, in the totality of nature, something like this pistol, this 10 mil from Boresight Solutions, or that Boresight Solutions 26 here, the noise that this thing makes doesn't exist. There's no shop vac. There's no Chevy 350 with headers and straight pipes on it. There's the crack of thunder, maybe the roar of a waterfall, maybe an ice shelf breaking off, maybe certain animals that can make a loud noise, a loud roar, or a whistle, or a screech of some kind. But other than that, there was no such thing as the mechanical and explosive devices that mankind has created. That stuff damages the shit out of your hearing, and it's forever. Let's dig in a little deeper. When we train, when we go to the range, or we read and watch videos like this, or dig into this concept of self-defense, and we try to find the best practices, right? The best practices. What are we doing? Why are we doing that? Well, we're We're hoping that if we ever need this thing for your job or any reason, you live, you win, you go home, right? That's the goal. We want to win. Why do we want to win? Why do we want to win? Oh, I want to win because I want to keep living. Why? Because living's cool. Living's a lot better than the alternative. At our courses, in the first couple pages of our course curriculum, there's a sentence. And I refer to you and the students and myself as a practitioner. Practitioner meaning they are practicing a craft, practicing a martial skill. Martial comes from Mars. Mars was the god of war. Martial, warlike. We are practicing to make war with our hands against another. I take that seriously. We are practitioners. It says you, the practitioner, are studying to more effectively deploy a pistol, a rifle, or whatever weapon we're training with as a tool for self-rescue or the rescue of another. Period. That is the overarching goal of what we're doing when we're training with a firearm for self-defense. I'm not talking about hunting or sporting purposes, but when we're training for self-defense purposes, ultimately those become offensive purposes, right? Steinbeck said, there is no victory in defense. Actually, that whole quote is, the purpose of fighting is to win. There is no victory in defense. The mind is the ultimate weapon and all else is supplemental. John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath, was one of his famous books. John knew a thing or two about that, and it's very meaningful when you think about it. So when we deploy this pistol, we go, while we are using it in a defensive nature, we must be offensive if we are to win. Nobody wins a basketball game without fighting and moving forward. As I pick this thing up and I think about that, if I'm doing things that cause damage, irreparable damage, like my hearing or my vision if I don't have eye protection on, I'm negating or defeating the point. My goal is, as I punch this thing out there, I drive my muzzle with purpose to whatever is trying to hurt me or somebody else. I use good target discrimination because I've trained to pay attention. I make sure that I have a clear and clean sight picture to my target and what's around and beyond it, so that I don't have additional injuries to people that are outside of who's causing this threat. That would be horrible. That requires a conscious effort. If I fixate on what a loud noise might do to me, I think that that might be something that is a valuable thing to think about, and then it's something I would come to grips with, just like somebody trying to work through a flinch. Nobody I've talked to, as I stated, that's been involved in a gunfight has ever once told me, yeah, that gunfire scared me. In fact, many of them have what's known as auditory exclusion. They didn't even hear it or it didn't sound loud at all. I told you about a little hearing damage. I'm also got significant vision loss in my right eye from a child shooting me with a BB gun when I was a kid. It's a horrible story. One day I'll tell the whole thing, just not here because it's not the point. Had I had on significant safety glasses from a hardware store, just good old-fashioned safety glasses, that probably wouldn't have happened. Don't lose sight of why you're doing this stuff. Don't cause damage to yourself. Like, these are all Pro Ears here. Pro Ears is some of the best hearing protection on the market, in my opinion. We have a code for them. You can use it anytime. It's CarryTrainer. Why is it the best? They have great sound reduction, but in addition to that, the electronics. This is one of the only makers that I know of that has electronics in both ears with separate processors that allow the sound to come in naturally how you hear it. Even the $300-400 sets that you buy from other makers have one processor, and it's splitting the sound to two different microphones. They're excellent. Think about this. In ear, so like little foamies like this. When I see people on the range with little foamies, or even something nice like these Surefires, and these things have a place. If I've just got these in, through the bones around the ear canal, we have the ability to conduct sound through the bone, and that can happen farther away. It can transfer, but right in and around the bone, it's very easy for that sound when these foamies are in to transfer right into your inner ear and cause damage. If I'm training around a bunch of people, especially if dudes have compensators or brakes on pistols and rifles, these I have on in addition to ears, not just one or the other, but both, because it's way too easy to put my ears back together here. It's way too easy to have that diminishing return, a little at a time, a little at a time, a little at a time. I'm not interested in it. I want to keep as much as possible. So if you see somebody with just these on the range, they probably are not protecting themselves as well as they could be. Food for thought. Cover up with some good ear pro. As your cups start to get wore out, or the pads, ear pads, replace them or replace the headset. Nothing lasts forever. I'll see guys where the cups themselves on their ear pro are so cracked and worn and broken. Well, the purpose of this portion of the ear pro is it's sealing to your ear. If air can leak through, sound can leak through. Sound travels on air. Think about that. Your hearing's important. In addition to it being important to hear a baby laugh, to hear music, to hear your loved ones talking, it is a tool for you to take in information in the world around you so that you can be better at the goal of being a practitioner of winning in violence. That hearing is one of our number one tools. Our eyes and our ears are our biggest senses, especially when it comes to danger, when it comes to orienting ourselves to possible life threats, be them a car, a fire, a bad guy, an animal running at you. Hearing is of the utmost importance, up to and just as equal as your eyes, because as light diminishes, these babies come online, right? Our vision is fantastic. As things are farther away, we use both of them. We orient ourselves to what problems are, and we need both of these. As I sit here in this room right now, I hear two distinct things. The first one is a lovely sss. Over that, there is a very beautiful high-pitched key, and then there's a little bit of a mixed in. It's great. It's fantastic. It's horrible. I hear it day and night. I hear it whether I'm alone in bed, whether I'm in a movie. I hear it when I'm on an airplane. I hear it when I'm in the shower. I hear it when I'm riding my motorcycle. I hear it when I'm in the car. I hear it anywhere, everywhere. Protect your ears. They're important. You're important. Self-defense is about protecting self. Don't expose yourself to needless things that cause you damage and diminish life. One more point I'm going to make. When people argue this with me, I ask, what gives us the right to use self-defense? What gives us the right? And most people will respond with something like this. I was in fear of death or great bodily harm, thus I use self-defense. So let's say this. Legally, you must be in fear of death or great bodily harm. You must be in fear of death or great bodily harm. You must be able to articulate that to prosecutor, judge, jury, detective, whoever. A jury of your peers has to hear your story and think that your reason for using self-defense was justified, and that a person knowing what you knew at the time maybe wouldn't do the exact same thing, but they could hear it and say, I understand why Mr. Smith or Mrs. Jones did what they did, knowing what they knew at the time. I'm not saying it was the most perfect thing, but I'm saying I get it. I understand. Tracking? Are we on the same page? What is great bodily harm? If somebody came and took a knife and stuck it in you, would that be something that warrants self-defense? What if they slashed your eye and stole some vision from you? I mean, that, to me, if somebody came and slashed my eye, that's great bodily harm. What if that same person did something that caused irreparable damage to your hearing, or the way your hands worked, or the way you walked, or your ability to speak or reason? All of those things can be described as great bodily harm, especially if they are irreparable, even more so. Don't assault yourself. Don't assault yourself. Protect yourself. Perfect yourself. Use wisdom. Don't damage yourself. Keep your faculties in order. Side note, guys, as a guy that spent his life in the trades, use hearing protection when you do anything above a talking volume, because cumulative damage adds up. Running a saw, even for a minute, put the ear protection on, hearing protection. If you're running a nail gun, even if it's a brad nailer, put the hearing protection on. If you work in a shop or a garage where there's machinery, put foamies in, something to protect your ears, and don't just shove in earbuds and crank the music. That's not protecting your ears. That's making it even worse. If anything, get some hearing protection like this that protects the outside noise from coming in, and then you can plug your earbuds in, or these like have the ability to plug music in, and you can meter it so it's not too loud. I care about you. You should care about you. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. Hopefully we see you at a training event soon. S12's coming in October. Be well. Peace.
industry focuses on the door, and that's where all their weight is, and they show all the bolts and corner bolts and all this stuff that you cannot pry these open. Take a circular saw, cheap circular saw with a carbide blade. And we've got videos on this. It's a $20 blade. I cut a gun safe completely in half. It's a big safe. It's a minute, 20 seconds, and I cut a 12-inch hole in the side in 18 seconds. A determined thief who knows you have a safe will open it up in minutes. That's not why you have a safe. Now, we look at storage from a different standpoint. Security, and that's going back to our military, how and why the military stores firearms. If you're going to store firearms in your home or secure them in a method or in a way that gives you an advantage, that puts you at a tactical advantage. Most people own firearms. One of the reasons is home defense. Even your avid hunters say, well, I'm a hunter, but if somebody breaks in, I still want a firearm. So store them in a way that gives you an advantage. And our term is principles of decentralized storage. Break up the safe, store in small modular cabinets located throughout your home. Mm-hmm. Put you in you're much safer. The guns are safer for a lot of reasons we can go into, and you're never more than 3 seconds away from a firearm that is truly child safe.
What's the method of entry into these safes? Is there more
we
than one?
We use simple push button locks. Okay. No, like the fingerprint readers we would never use.
Yeah.
We consider this never fail technology. If somebody is in your house with a gun shooting at you, it has to open in a second or two. You don't have, in a fingerprint reader, if your fingers are dirty, wet, gloves, there's so many reasons they won't open. Mm-hmm.